HBCU Success fam, it's your girl Zachlin, and I am back with another profound lecture with one of our esteemed HBCU alumni. If you are new to the channel, welcome. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that bell for notifications so you don't miss a single lecture. I'm calling these lectures because our alumni are preaching and teaching as they share their story from college to exceptional career success. And today is no exception. I had the privilege of interviewing one of the most kind and compassionate medical professionals I've encountered. I am talking about two-time HBCU graduate and prominent dentist, Dr. Lehman Harris. Dr. Harris is very passionate about sharing oral hygiene information, so much so that his lecture includes a free dental consultation, no copay needed. Now, on the HBCU Success Show, we've debunked a couple of myths already. Dr. Bernard Hodges, the veterinarian, proved that you don't have to be an athlete or an entertainer to be on television. Ms. Rashawn Haynes, the news producer and anchor of a brand new 2-hour weekend show, proved that you don't have to have 20, 10, or even 5 years under your belt to have exceptional career success. And today, Dr. Lehman Harris debunks the myth that we go to our HBCUs because we couldn't get in anywhere else, because we had no other choice. It was a last resort. You listen to Dr. Harris's story. He chose to go to an HBCU and he had options twice. Now, as you know, before I get into the interview, I'm going to first pay tribute to the HBCU. And if you are a returned viewer, you know that we've had some exceptionally great footage of our HBCUs. And I want to publicly thank them for their generosity. Fort Valley State University, Tuskegee University, and Tennessee State University. And today is no exception. Plus, it features a little footage that I took during a trip to Nashville where I visited all 3 HBCUs. Comment below. Let me test your HBCU IQ. What are the 3 HBCUs in Nashville, Tennessee? All right, now let's give it up for Xavier University of Louisiana and Meharry Medical College.
Xavier University of Louisiana was established in New Orleans in 1925 with the ultimate purpose of contributing to the promotion of a more just and humane society. Xavier University prepares its students to assume roles of leadership and service in a global society. Xavier uniquely puts a spin on the acronym HBCU, as it is a historically Black Catholic university. Xavier has maintained top rankings, as Advocate ranked Xavier as the number 3 Catholic college or university, and U.S. News ranked Xavier as the number 3 HBCU in its Best Colleges Guide. Xavier University is one of 6 partners in the U.S. Department of Education-funded teacher training program with the New Orleans, Louisiana public school system. Funded by a $13 million grant, the program resulted in more than 250 new teachers to meet the needs of New Orleans public schools with high concentrations of high-need students. Perhaps Xavier University of Louisiana is most known for its STEM programs that prepare students for advanced STEM degrees and medical school. Notably, the Accredited School of Pharmacy was awarded $6 million in research funding to continue its mission of preparing pharmacists to make an impact on the medically underserved communities. A recent Association of American Medical Colleges report revealed that Xavier maintains its high-ranking status in sending African American graduates on to successfully complete medical school. Xavier continues with its impressive high ranking, serving as a pipeline to medical school, particularly to fellow HBCU Meharry Medical College. Meharry Medical College was founded just 11 years after the end of the Civil War with the mission of educating African Americans to serve the underserved. Nestled in Nashville, Tennessee, Meharry's faith-based roots within the United Methodist Church inspired the school to respect and serve all. Staying true to its founding mission, every year, Meharry provides approximately $29 million of uncompensated care to local indigent and underserved patients. 3 out of every 4 Meharrians return to urban or rural communities to provide medical or dental services. Whether it's graduates or physicians, dentists, scientists, professors, or public health professionals, the Meharry experience equips them to affect the world as a force for change, led by their motto, worship of God through service to mankind. Meharry Medical College is the nation's largest private, historically Black academic health sciences center and has trained thousands of healthcare professionals. Notably, more than 40% of the nation's African American dentists are graduates of the Meharry Medical College School of Dentistry. Of those 40% is Trailblazer Dr. Lehman Harris. Dr. Harris is a proud alumnus of Xavier University of Louisiana and Meharry Medical College. Upon graduating from dental school, Dr. Harris was one of the first 2 African Americans to attend the coveted Albert Einstein Medical Center Dental Residency and became the first African American to win the prestigious honor of Resident of the Year. Dr. Harris's dental practice, Promenade Dental Care in Midtown Atlanta, Georgia, offers small-town dentistry in the big city. He is known for being a compassionate, thoughtful dentist who first listens to his patients in order to provide a considerate dental plan tailored to fit each patient's needs. Drawing on the missions of his 2 HBCUs to serve the underserved, Dr. Harris established Saving Smiles, a nonprofit committed to improving the oral health of children in underserved communities. Saving Smiles develops innovative strategies to change behaviors and influence young minds to engage in research-based home care routines that have been proven to prevent dental issues. Dr. Lehman Harris is HBCU Success.
Please welcome Dr. Lehman Harris. Dr. Harris, thank you so very much for being here on the show with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jacqueline.
I know that you have a very packed schedule with your dental practice in Midtown Atlanta, so I thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to spend some time with us today. In that bio that we just read, that was straight from your bio. And full disclosure to the audience, I have visited Dr. Harris's dental practice in Atlanta, Promenade Dental, and the words that were used to describe you, compassionate, providing a comfortable experience, a listener, someone who is providing a thoughtful, tailored solution to his patients, I can attest firsthand that those are not just words, that is the truth. And in my opinion, if all medical professionals had that same bedside manner, we would be in a much better position in our health field. So thank you, Dr. Harris, for being such a compassionate as well as highly skilled dentist.
Oh, Jacqueline, thank you so much. Great deal of joy in providing that kind of service. And when it's recognized, that just makes it double rewarding, to be quite honest with you.
Well, that's the truth. You know, Dr. Harris, I like to start off with gratitude. I think that an attitude of gratitude just brings more opportunities and it just helps uplift us. So if you don't mind sharing with us today, 2 to 3 things that you're grateful for.
Wow. Well, I'm grateful for quite a few things, but if I had to narrow it down to 2 or 3 things, I would say that I am grateful for the experiences that I had at the HBCUs that were a part of my life. I'm grateful for my mother's love and support in helping me along my journey to get to where I am in my career. And I'm also grateful to all of my staff and clients as well who are involved with my dental practice here in Atlanta, Promenade Dental Care.
Awesome. So let's get right into your journey from college to career success. So starting off, Dr. Harris, when you were graduating from high school, was your career goal to become a dentist?
Yes, I knew I wanted to be in the medical field, and
Okay.
my father was already working in the dental field as a dental lab owner and operator. So
Okay.
I had my hands already in dentistry, to be quite honest with you. But I knew very early on that I wanted to be in the medical field. I think that it was more than likely towards the early or late part of my freshman year that I made the final decision that I was going to pursue dentistry.
Okay. So you started off at UGA, University of Georgia.
Yes.
And you decided to take your talents to Xavier University of Louisiana. Please help us understand the decision-making process and why you chose to go to Xavier.
Well, a large portion of why I went to Xavier has to do with the fact that I was looking for a nurturing environment. I think as well, to be quite honest with you, my parents had a hand in that as well. And we had long heard from other parents of Xavierites that Xavier was very much instrumental in their students' ability to achieve and get into medical or dental school or even pharmacy school. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they were able to do was create this cradle. And I think that one of the reasons why they're so successful is because they put a little bit of extra effort into helping you get over that hump. Whereas sometimes at the larger universities, it's easier for some of the students to get looked over just a little bit, just because of the sheer volume that the counselors in the school are having to deal with. So it becomes more of an elimination process, whereas you're going to get a lot of inclusivity at a smaller school and quite possibly as well HBCU.
Totally agree. Understand that. Can you talk a bit about that curriculum that you just talked about a little bit at Xavier from an academic perspective? What was that curriculum like? And talk about that cradle there, if you will.
Well, one of the things at Xavier that I think separates it from the pack is that rather than teaching us from scholastic books that were made by large publishing companies, they actually took the time to create, for lack of a better term, kind of a homemade workbook that the teachers were using to essentially teach the curriculum to the students. And several of the pioneers who actually came up with those ideas are no longer with us, God rest their soul, but it was ingenious. And they had found ways to make it so that it was easier to digest the information. And I think that in doing so, by tailor making the actual booklets that we were using, it was able to be consumed a little bit easier at that school. So that's part of that cradle environment that I was speaking of. And in general as well, there just tends to be a little bit more camaraderie, in my opinion, at the HBCUs that I had contact with than I would hear about at some of the other schools of some of my other peers. But without question, Xavier is tops at making sure that you get that type of education and kind of helping you and nudging you along the way rather than just crossing out names that didn't qualify.
Yes, I think that is one of the benefits of going to our HBCUs is getting that, as you said, that nurturing, that cradle type curriculum. And it seems like they were really trying to make sure that you understood the application of it as well, too, as you were going along.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, education without application doesn't always get us any action. So certainly they had mastered the art of that at Xavier University. No question.
Right. Now, you talked about how Xavier has a great reputation for sending students off to medical school and pharmacy school. Did they prepare you for that, being an African American going out into that field?
Yes. I wouldn't go as far as to say that there is, I wouldn't go as far as to say there's a particular focus on making sure that, African American students are able to move forward. It's more of a concentration in just making sure that we have all the tools in order to get us through that next level that we're trying to go to. So I would say that, what Xavier was doing would have helped to accommodate any student of any background. Okay. But certainly, the HBCUs, they tend to have, in my opinion, more of a hands-on approach that I also find running through the African American community. And I think most of us who, have come in contact with the African American community know exactly what I mean. we're going to get a little bit more involved in just telling you. We want to tell, show, and do. And in doing so, it kind of teaches you how to fish instead of just handing you a fish.
Yes. Yes, understood. So, were there any challenging courses for you in your undergrad days at Xavier, and how did you overcome those?
Certainly, certainly. I think more than likely the most challenging courses that I experienced there at Xavier University would have involved organic chemistry and biochemistry. And I did well in those classes, but I don't think I did as well as I needed to in order to exceed expectations in trying to get into dental school. So I actually, after I graduated from Xavier University, did some post-bac work as well to improve those grades. And in doing so, I was able to achieve A's in biochemistry and organic chemistry. And that helped to catapult me into dental school.
That's awesome. That's good. That's very good. Before we move on to your transition to Meharry, I have to ask a fun question here.
Please.
Take us back. What song or TV show or movie takes you back to your days at Xavier?
Oh, wow. That's something. Song or TV show? Well, certainly there is a lot of regional music that's played down in New Orleans. I don't think a lot of people would be keen.
Okay.
But with that being said, I was there around the time that a particular musician who has been revered throughout the country was doing well, and that would be Mr. Juvenile. I'm sure we've probably all heard that song, Back It Up. And of course, when that song comes on, just about all of us know that it's time to get out there on the dance floor. To this day, when I hear that bass line come in, it reminds me of jumping out there at some of the dance. As far as TV shows would go, my roommate and I would spend time watching several different shows, but I suppose one that jumps out, I suppose more in particular to me, would probably be something like MTV Cribs, which we used to watch quite a little bit back then. And as well, we would watch some of the spring break MTV coverage as well too. Back when MTV showed a lot of music stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dr. Harris with the Cash Money 99-2000.
That's right.
All right. So let's get back into the education here. So going into Meharry and going into the School of Dentistry. Talk about what it takes to get into dental school. You talked about wanting to have those exceptional grades so that you made sure that you were going to get in, so that you were also able to pass the, is it the dental admissions test as well too?
Yes, the DAT. Yeah, the DAT is the big admissions test that you must do well on, not just necessarily pass, but you must do well on to get into dental school. And yes, I was always the type of student that was striving to do my very best. But I do think that there's something to be said as well for being well-rounded. Of course, there are certain requirements that you're going to have as far as your grades. And, coming out of college, you need to expect to be making B's and up if, you want to qualify for any medical program. I think as well, too, you'll want to make sure that you are well-rounded. So I spent a lot of time in the pre-dental club there at Xavier. I played tennis for Xavier and was lucky enough to even become a scholarship athlete while playing tennis there at Xavier.
Awesome.
So, some of that preparation outside of academia, I think really helped me as well, because there are a lot of obstacles that you'll have to overcome in order to get where you truly want to be.
Talk about that a little bit more if you don't mind. You said there are a lot of obstacles that you'll have to get over. Can you think of some or talk to us about lessons that you've learned as you've overcome some obstacles to get to where you are?
Well, I just find that one way or another, there are going to be times where as a student, as a parent, as a business owner, you're going to feel as though you might have hit rock bottom. But in truth, it's those who get back up and continue to move on that are successful. As a dental student, I can remember understanding, that as long as I stuck to the course, I would have an opportunity to do what I've always dreamed of. And there were times when it was really difficult, and some of my classmates would think to themselves, okay, am I in the right place? Do I need to stay here? But I think the overriding truth that we would often kind of reveal to one another is that if you have any intention of being a dentist in any way, shape, or form, the last thing that you need to think about is getting up. So there may be setbacks, but setbacks are just a part of life. And you're going to end up having to churn that negative energy into positive energy. And when you're able to do that, to be quite honest with you, nothing would be able to hold you back. And I find that one of the best ways that you can turn negative energy into positive energy, as you alluded to earlier, Jacqueline, is being grateful. When you find ways to be grateful for the things that you already have, then it forces you not to focus on negativity. And without going in that direction, you'll have a much better chance at achieving the goals that you set for yourself.
Yes.
So there was no question I was knocked back, at moments. But the reason why I stand in front of you all today is because I just kept getting back up over and over and over and over again.
Yes.
And I expect to continue to do that throughout the life of my career.
Amen. I love that. Thank you for that wisdom. That was very good.
No problem.
Now, how did you choose Meharry? Why did you choose Meharry? Did you focus your selection to only HBCUs, or
No,
did
I
you
did
choose
not.
Meharry and it happened to be an HBCU?
Yeah, no, I did not. No, I had applied to several schools in this region of the country, including Howard University and at the time, Medical College of Georgia. I think they have a different name now. But with that being said, I will admit, Meharry was always at the top of my list. There were a lot of physicians that I grew up around here in the Atlanta area who had attended Meharry. And then as well, to be quite honest with you, Xavier has served in some way, shape, or form as a pipeline for students in Meharry. I can remember at one point when I was there in dental school, having a conversation with another gentleman that graduated from Xavier as well around the time I did. And we felt like at Meharry that at least 30% of the students had passed through Xavier.
Oh, wow.
So again, Xavier was very instrumental in getting students into medical and dental school. But without question, overwhelmingly, I would say they were particularly proficient in doing that and getting you into the HBCU medical schools and dental schools as well, in addition to some of the other schools that aren't recognized as HBCUs throughout the country. So, they were very proficient in doing it either way. But certainly, as I mentioned, at Meharry, there was an overwhelming amount of us. So when I arrived, I felt very at home because there were a lot of students that I had gotten to know as well on Xavier's campus.
That's awesome. That's good.
Oh, yeah.
Now let's talk a bit about Meharry a little bit more regarding the diversity that is there. You mentioned that you had a lot of students there that went through Xavier and came along with you or had been there before, but talk about diversity there as well too, because I think a lot of times we think of our HBCUs as only the B part of it, but Meharry is quite a diverse school, is it not?
Yes, it is. This is one of my favorite subjects to talk about because oftentimes when we think of HBCU, we're thinking of a primarily Black clientele, Black student population. But in truth, our HBCUs are open to everyone and they do provide an excellent education. Around the time when I graduated from Meharry in 2005, I noticed that some of the younger classes were way more diverse than even my class. And I had people from all different walks of life from all over the country, even in my class, but the percentages were more evened out in the freshman and sophomore classes. And I welcomed that, to be quite honest with you. I felt like that was representative of what HBCUs have been doing and are capable of doing in the future. And it was to be quite honest with you, very eye-opening for me even at that time. But I think with that being said, the opportunities that the HBCUs afford African American students are there as well for just about every other ethnic group here. And in knowing that, that gives me a great deal of pride.
Yes.
Because we don't want to ever limit what we're able to, to achieve to just one group. I am a big communicator, and I believe that when you're able to communicate to large swaths of people, then you can, disseminate a positive message, as you and I discussed before. And that's something that I try to do at my practice with oral hygiene instruction. And as well, I think that a lot of HBCUs have been very successful with as well. And Meharry, just their student body population is basically a great example of that.
Mm-hmm. I think it speaks to the academic curriculum at our HBCUs. A lot of times people unfortunately look down on our HBCUs for academics. And that is part of why I started this platform, to shine a light on that. But you just gave us a true testament of that, in that, others outside of the African American race have recognized just how excellent and reputable our academic curriculum is at our HBCUs.
Absolutely. And several of those dentists that graduated with me of other backgrounds and other ethnicities have been incredibly successful.
Yes.
I would go as far as to say that I expect for that trend to continue into the future. That the HBCUs themselves, I expect for the student population to become a little bit more homogenous.
Okay, got it. So you graduated from Meharry. Can you tell us the degree program and what you attained when you graduated from Meharry?
When I graduated from Meharry, I received a Doctorate of Dental Surgery. And when I graduated from Xavier, I received a minor in chemistry, and my major was biology. So, I was able to achieve at Meharry School of Dentistry the Doctor of Dental Surgery degree, with the stepping stones of going through those biology and chemistry courses.
Excellent. After you graduated from Meharry, you decided to do a residency, something that is not required for a dentist. Please help us understand your decision in going to residency.
All right, that's a great question. I felt that in learning as much as I could about dentistry, that it was important for me to stretch my education a little bit further and learn further how to apply what I had already learned at Meharry School of Dentistry. And a general practice residency, which is what I did there at Albert Einstein Medical Center in Philadelphia, is a perfect, trying ground for that. I got a chance to do implant work. I got a chance to do just some meat and potatoes dentistry there as well too. And I was also under the wing of experienced dentists who had a lot of experience in applying these procedures on patients, and were also willing teachers as well. So, it gave me an opportunity to fine-tune some of my bedside manner. It gave me an opportunity to kind of further learn some of the techniques that they don't have time to teach us in dental school, such as implant applications. And as a result of that, it made me a little bit more of a well-rounded dentist once I did finally go out and start working in public. In my opinion, I think, honestly, every dentist should probably do that.
Yeah.
I think it would be good.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you like to, have things exceptional. And it sounds like that you took that even further by doing the residency. Going from Xavier to Meharry, which again, both are HBCUs, but we just talked about how Meharry was a pretty diverse HBCU. Yes. And then going into the Albert Einstein Medical Center dental residency. You were one of the first African Americans to get into that residency. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I was lucky enough to travel with two other Meharrians to Albert Einstein Medical Center. And I, alongside another young lady, were two of the first African Americans accepted into that program.
How How did that feel, Dr. Harris, going in knowing that you are walking into uncharted territory as an African American going into that? And this is Albert Einstein. Like that name itself is a little intimidating. So how did that feel?
It is. It is. Well, wow. I was very proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things about working really hard to achieve is that oftentimes when you get to the point that you're ready to receive that goal, you'll be happy and you'll be relieved, but you'll also say, hey, I deserve this,
Yeah. Okay.
And by the time I graduated from Meharry, I had earned my degree. So, I was emotional about it, but not overly emotional. I was ready to get down to the business of applying what I had learned.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I got to Albert Einstein Medical Center, I must admit, I was very proud of the fact that I had been admitted into that program. I knew that it was a coveted program to be involved with. And the dentists that were there, to be quite honest with you, continued kind of that cradle environment that I experienced even in the HBCUs that I had been at, where they made sure that we were very well cared for. They wouldn't put us in harm's way. And I felt like all of the doctors that were there with me, including some of the chief residents as well, benefited from that situation. Because even there, to be quite honest with you, we had a very diverse group. And that was something that I was very, very thankful for.
Yes.
And still think of very fondly, to be quite honest with you.
Good. That's very good, because it could have been totally different. So it's good to hear that you had a great experience. You mentioned that this particular center is highly coveted. I can only imagine that they're only accepting the cream of the crop into this program. Can you briefly tell us what it takes to get into that type of residency?
Well, believe it or not, again, I think a lot of it is really just being well-rounded.
Okay.
There are a lot of dentists who know dentistry in and out. I mean, they could do the best possible crown that you've ever seen and best set of veneers that you have ever seen. But if they're unable to communicate very well with the patients and get across value and have them understand, or even just to, in some way, shape, or form, be able to relate to the patient, then some of that very great skill that they have may get lost in translation. So I found that, my acceptance into Albert Einstein Medical Center, as well as the other two residents that were there from Meharry Medical College School of Dentistry, they were there primarily because they were great dentists and they were great people. They were the type of people who had strived to do more, who were ready and willing to do more with their career. And all three of us, to be quite honest with you, are independent business owners right now.
Awesome.
One of those dentist practices up in Philadelphia. It does very well. And the other dentist practices in Columbus, Georgia. And
Okay.
she does very well. And of course, here I am in Midtown Atlanta.
Yeah.
We were able to practice in a hospital setting. So we were also placed in situations where we had to deal with emergency services. So, that gave us a leg up surgically, I think, as well on some of our counterparts. But with that being said, anyone who was graduating from dental school and was trying to get into a program similar to Albert Einstein Medical Center, I would advise them to just work on some of their soft skills. Make sure that they are technically proficient as well, but you want to make sure that you're ready to do an interview in an appropriate way. You want to make sure that you carry yourself appropriately and look the part when you actually go to do the interview. And then let's just face it, you also want to be yourself. Because in the end, patients don't necessarily care so much about what you know. What they do care about is that knowing that you actually care. And that's something that you want to be able to get across to patients. And that within itself is a gift.
Yes. Now, you did so well in your residency that you were awarded Resident of the Year and earned the prestigious Benjamin Levy Memorial Award. So as one of the first African Americans, I want to set the stage for the audience to understand this. As one of the first African Americans to walk into the Albert Einstein Medical Center dental residency, Dr. Lehman Harris won Resident of the Year in 2005. What an amazing accomplishment.
I still love hearing that. And I am still just as surprised as I was that night that I had earned the respect of my peers and, the other doctors that I worked with. But I felt as well that so did the rest of the residents that were there with me. But I will say this, having had that opportunity to achieve, most of the students or residents that practiced at Albert Einstein Medical Center either went to Temple University, which was right up the street from Albert Einstein Medical Center. That's a very good dental school. Mm-hmm. Or they were graduates of UPenn, which is probably one of the top universities in the world. And of course, as a result of that, their dental school is looked at as tops as well. So again, my opportunity to go to Albert Einstein Medical Center and my opportunity to be a candidate for the Benjamin Levy Award, a lot of it has to do with my HBCU background and the level of education that I was able to receive there. I do think, again, as well, some of this just has to do with the fact that I was good with patients. But with that being said, I'm very proud of that. And I don't think I'll be the last.
Well, and that's excellent. I love that you said that, because I love when, we can be the first, but we're turning around to see, okay, who's next? And we're trying to make sure we help the next. I think that it just speaks volumes about, like you said, your ability to work well with the patients as well as your technical proficiency, because you just said that you were in school there, in residency there, with other students who had come from far more notable dental schools than you had. Not saying Meharry is not great, but in comparison, people would not have expected you to have won that award. So I love when, I hate to say, kind of the underdog comes out on top. And I often tell people 2 + 2 = 4, no matter where you go. It's what you do with it.
Right.
And you are just a perfect example of that. I'm just like, oh, that is so amazing. Great. You got through residency. You decide to spend some time in New York for a while, and then you made your way back home to Georgia and found your way back into Atlanta. And Correct. So you decided to work in the corporate sector as well as with a private practice part-time as well there too. So can you talk about that time when you were doing both and what you gleaned from that?
Well, strategically, as I was getting into the workforce, I had a hard time deciding whether or not I wanted to work in a corporate office or whether or not I wanted to work up under a more experienced dentist. I felt like there were positives and negatives to both. And I was lucky enough to be able to land both. I took a job with a local corporation here that gave me great benefits, surrounded me with a team, and gave me some freedom to do some good dentistry for patients. And I also ended up taking a 1-day-a-week job with a dentist that had owned a practice for more than 10 or 15 years and was able to help him run one of his newer practices. I gleaned a lot from that experience. I think, working in a corporate environment, I learned what it was like to have, the pressure of numbers and quotas on your back, and whether or not that was something that I felt like was a positive for my patients. And then when I worked up under the other dentist, I learned some of the daily struggles of running a business, to be quite honest with you. Certainly the private dentist that I worked with, was a gentleman just like myself, who was from North Carolina and had made it through dental school. And just as many successes as he had also had setbacks, as we discussed earlier. And for that reason, he was very open with me about that. And I learned a great deal from him, to be quite honest with you. So I was very thankful to have that kind of mentorship, which is something I don't think I would have gotten from the corporation. And then as well, in being at the corporation, I learned all about autonomy and what it was like to have a group of people that were depending on me to give them instruction on what they needed to do on a daily basis. And as well to be responsible for some of the higher ups in the business. in the end, I found that private practice was a better situation for me. But with that being said, I'm very thankful that I got a chance to do both. And anytime I talk to dentists who are graduating from dental school, I always give them that piece of advice that if they can, try to dip your feet in both pools. That way you can figure out which one is really more your style.
Good. At what point did you know I'm ready? I can do this on my own. I'm ready to go in and have my own dental practice. Was there a particular moment? Was it an aha moment? Can you talk about when you knew and how you knew you were ready?
Oh, wow. Well, within a year of having done the kind of the dual situation, I realized that I really like private practice, and the dentist that I had been working for offered me an opportunity to come in and work for him full time. And suddenly I was there, and we had a really good relationship, and the patient seemed to be receptive to my treatment. And with that being said, the practice was beginning to take off. So I had immediately begun to daydream about an opportunity to buy in and become a partner with that dentist.
Okay.
But with that being said, um, again, I'm the type of person who will have a plan, and then I'll have a plan B, and I might even have a plan C. So as I had plan A working, I was also working plan B. And plan B was to get out there with some of the dental practice brokerage companies and see what they had to offer. It's very similar to purchasing a home, where you go to a real estate agent and they'll give you a menu of different houses that they can show you. And there are dental practice brokers who do exactly the same thing. And they'll show you the dental practices that are up for sale in your area. And I was lucky enough to come across a dental practice that was very close to where I lived. It was in an area where I wanted to be, and the patients were receiving the type of treatment that I was really good at rendering. And for that reason, March 2010, I was able to purchase Promenade Dental Care in Midtown Atlanta.
That is awesome. I love that you had a plan A and a plan B, and that you had the confidence to continue to pursue your plan B. And I love how you broke that down for us too, because I've never thought about how one opens a private practice. So thank you for explaining that to us. So Promenade Dental in Midtown Atlanta. So for those who are not familiar with Atlanta, you have downtown and then you have Midtown. And again, I visited Promenade Dental, and I have to say, Dr. Harris, I was impressed. We talked location, location, location. You have the prime location in Midtown. I mean, you were not far from Google and other prominent companies. You're on the 24th floor of a great building. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, like, it was just highly impressive just getting to the office. But with all of that big city flavor, please tell us the mantra that you have for your practice.
You know, it's funny enough. And of course, I go to that office every day. So sometimes I forget how impressive, it is. But I actually think of my slogan as being small town dentistry in the big city. Again, I'm really big on bedside manner and getting to know my patients and having some understanding of how I might be able to tailor make their experience so that they might enjoy it more and as well get exactly what they're looking for. So I tend to put a lot of my effort into making sure that type of thing happens for patients. So although I'm located, in a ritzy area of town, to be quite honest with you, I do my very best to kind of level with my patients and make sure that they understand that the time that we have set aside for them is their time, so that they can, voice some of their concerns, and we can come up with some solutions that would be practical for them.
Yes. Well, and I'm glad you said that, because yes, it is kind of a big place and in a prominent area of Atlanta, but the office itself is quaint and cozy.
Yes.
And you have flex hours at your practice. And so some days you start early, some days you start late and stay late. Can you talk to us about why you have those flexible hours like that?
Well, one of my philosophies in dentistry is you'll hear a lot of different, philosophies on what we think the future of dentistry holds, what we might be capable of doing. 50 years from now versus 5 years from now. And when I was coming out of dental school, it was all about implants. But a huge part of my philosophy is that I believe in patients getting their teeth cleaned more regularly. I think that if patients are able to do that, they'll have less dental problems. And as a result of that, they'll probably need less dentistry, which I consider to be a good thing for patients. And, with that being said, my practice follows those philosophies. So I do my very best to be open at times where people don't have to miss work in order to get the treatment that I like for them to receive. Patients will oftentimes be able to get off work if they're in pain or something's broken or something has, chipped and doesn't look appropriate. But oftentimes it's difficult for them to do preventative care, especially when they're not in any discomfort. So I do my very best to grease the wheels and make it easy for patients to be able to get that kind of treatment as far as cleanings, deep cleanings, evaluations, examinations, and opportunities for me to discuss how they care for themselves at home. So I provide services at times, sometimes as early as 7:30 a.m. so that people can have an opportunity to get to work at 9 o'clock a.m. And I also provide services up until 6 p.m., 7 p.m. earlier in my career, but I have young kids now. But with that being said, we work up until 6 p.m. Every other week so that we can also provide services for patients who prefer to be treated after they get off of work. And I feel like that's valuable in my community, that in some way, shape, or form, again, you have to kind of meet the patients where they are. And it's 2023, and those of us who work for a living just cannot afford to miss work oftentimes. So we just want to make sure that people have time to get the care that they actually need.
Got it. Understood. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions where we get your expertise here, Dr. Harris.
Please,
so,
yeah, I love these.
One of the questions that kind of goes back and forth online sometimes. Are you supposed to floss before or after you brush your teeth?
Oh, I love this question. And this is a very popular question as well at dental meetings. It comes up oftentimes on some of the threads on social media between dentists. The appropriate way to get the brushing and flossing done, or even the correct order, would be to floss first and then brush. And the reason why is because you want to dislodge any food product that might be wedged between the teeth before you begin the application of the toothpaste. Toothpaste has a element or chemical in it called fluoride. And fluoride actually combines with the outer layer of the tooth structure to make the tooth more resistant to cavities. So you want as much of the surface area of the tooth structure exposed when you go to apply it. And when I mean topical, I mean just like lotion is applied to your skin. That's a topical application of lotion. The same thing is happening when you're massaging and brushing your teeth with the toothpaste. So having that extra tooth structure exposed after you've dislodged food is really, really important. So I advocate for patients to floss before they brush.
Okay. There we go. We got it. Dr. Lehman Harris said floss before you brush your teeth.
Take things a step further, Jacqueline. I would want everyone to know that it's important for them to brush twice a day, but more importantly, you have to brush at night before you go to sleep. Once you finish brushing and flossing at night, you shouldn't eat or drink anything else other than water until the next morning. And it should take you about 2 minutes at any given time to brush.
Thank you for that. Now, I want to go back to something that you mentioned before. You mentioned that you want people coming in more often for those preventative measures instead of just waiting until something hurts or something is broken.
Absolutely.
I have found that a lot of adults, including myself, had a fear of the dentist, possibly because of some painful things that happened in the past. But then we'll go and we're like, oh my God, that wasn't bad at all. So is it that we grew up and things aren't as bad as they used to be? Or has the art and science of dentistry improved to the point where things have gotten better and they don't hurt anymore like they used to?
I think that the art and science of dentistry has improved significantly. I think that the approach that dentists take now lends itself to a more comfortable situation to patients. But I would even go as far as to say that oftentimes in certain communities, if there is already an idea that something is discomforting or painful, then oftentimes that idea gets passed along to the next generation, where they'll have an understanding that something isn't necessarily a pleasant experience before they've even experienced it themselves. It's kind of like, say, a parent who's afraid of dogs will tell their child to be afraid of dogs, or a parent who has trouble swimming or can't swim will in some way inadvertently kind of teach the child to be afraid as well too. So oftentimes parents who are afraid of the dentist will impart that same thing on their children. So oftentimes at pediatric offices, they will honestly ask for the parent not to come in the back. And they might also request that the parent don't spend a lot of time speaking negatively about dentistry to the child on the way to the appointment, because it plants a seed, and oftentimes that seed will manifest itself, once the patient actually gets there. The other point that I would want to make there, and this kind of lends itself to my philosophy in dentistry about people having their teeth cleaned more often, is that the more often you have your teeth cleaned, the more comfortable it's going to be. Meaning that it's when you go for long periods of time without tending to that sort of an issue that it can become very uncomfortable for the patient. So it creates this negative feedback loop. You don't go to the dentist for 5 years, you go in, you get something done, you're a little tender afterwards, which may lead you to believe, okay, I don't want to do that again. But of course, if you don't go again, then you're literally just setting yourself up for the same problem 5 years later again. So it's one of those situations where if it's tended to on a regular basis, it becomes incredibly easy and simple. So there just as many patients as we have that are definitely afraid of the dentist, you'd be surprised. There are also a lot of patients that can't wait to jump in the dental chair because all they've ever had are positive experiences. But the reason why they're on that path is because it began long, long ago. And chances are their family members and parents started them along that path long before they had choice in mind. I think that by the time we become adults, Zachlin, oftentimes practicality and, just having a good compass in life will lend itself for patients to begin to understand that, hey, anything hygiene related requires some level of competency, and it requires you to be consistent. And in order to develop that consistency, you would have to get over the fear of going to the dentist. I often joke with patients earlier in my career that, do you know what happens to people who are afraid of the dentist? They end up there anyway. So it's better for patients to have the opportunity to bring their teeth to the dentist than for your tooth to bring you. And that's the reason why it's so important for our communities to focus on preventative care. That way, when we're 60, 70, 75, we're still chewing on the same teeth that God gave us when we were 10.
HBCU Success Fam, we experienced challenges with Dr. Harris's interview, so I am unable to show you the last few minutes of our discussion. Fortunately, it was only the last few minutes, but what he was saying was very important. So I want to make sure that I provide that information to you now. So the last thing that you heard Dr. Harris state is that you want to be chewing on the same teeth you had at 10 when you're 65. And with that in mind, he established the nonprofit Saving Smiles. Saving Smiles is committed to improving the oral health care in children in underserved communities and believes that prevention is the key to a healthy future. So Saving Smiles enriches families with research-based home care routines, and it also develops a comprehensive healthcare system by developing relationships between dental and primary care providers. Now, in the description box of every interview, I always provide information about the HBCUs and the alum, but I am also including a link to Saving Smiles where you can contribute to this 501c3 nonprofit, which means all contributions are tax deductible, and they are about halfway of their goal. So let's help them get to the goal. Well, HBCU Success fam, that wraps up another lecture of the HBCU Success Show. Please help me in thanking Dr. Lehman Harris for being here with us today. Dr. Harris, thank you so much for dedicating so much of your time to share your college to exceptional trailblazing career success with us. It certainly was inspiring and encouraging, not only by what you did and what you accomplished, but also the wisdom that you provided along the way as you shared your story. So thank you very much. And thank you for that free dental consultation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all again for watching. Make sure you like this video. Comment below. What did you learn? What are you taking away from Dr. Harris's story, from Xavier to Meharry to becoming the dentist that he is today? And what information are you now going to incorporate in your dental hygiene routine? And make sure you share this video with others that you think will find his story and his information beneficial. And of course, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell for notifications, because I have more alumni coming. Until next time, make sure your potential energy in motion and floss first. And I'll see you soon.